This is Ikisha Cross. I was asked to share my testimony by the CEO and founder of Marvelocity. And I can honestly say from my experiences that Psalms 139:14 absolutely applies to my life. Growing up in church, having multiple preachers in my family, I was raised to believe and behave a certain way. It wasn't until about maybe 3 to 5 years ago that I came into an understanding of uh, what truth in God and walking in truth in God really means, and really understanding what God meant by being fearfully and wonderfully made. I had been groomed and taught that I should be and act a certain way, but the closer I got to God and began to come into an understanding that God wanted the real me, that God had actually called me and was completely aware of what I looked like behind the many masks I was wearing. And I had come to a point, a fork in a road in my life where I had to decide whether I was going to continue with the persona, the untruth of how I was living, or begin to walk in the truth of God concerning my life. And I decided to walk in the truth of God concerning my life. Now, what that looked like was me leaving what was familiar, and what I was comfortable with, and deciding to go on a journey that I didn't know where I was going. Really living out when God spoke to Abraham and saying, "Come out from among them and be ye separate," and then telling Abraham to go to a place that he would show him. I really began to walk that out in my life and begin to drop off the layers that had been covering me. For many years, I was ashamed of my physical appearance. I was ashamed of my height. I was ashamed of my voice, having a rather deep and raspy voice for a woman. And I was not made comfortable for many years. And I would do things and participate in unhealthy habits because of my lack of uh, security and lack of confidence in how God made me. I honestly thought God had made a mistake because I wasn't like everyone else and I didn't fit the mold. And I didn't blend in. And I remember my mother had preached a sermon, I think it was her initial sermon, and she was talking about being a misfit. And it hit home for me because I understood at that point that I was designed differently, but I had not yet walked into a place of acceptance. And a lot of times when we talk about how God has called us, sometimes we miss the fact that God really did call us, really knowing about us. And we kind of push that to the back burner and try to become something that he didn't design us to be. So I ended up leaving my home church, and went to a smaller ministry where I was trained. But I was trained more or less in how to just take off my mask and be okay with who and what I was, whatever that looked like. And that caused me to walk into a place of truth in my life where I was able to face God with what my truth was. I was no longer in the presence of God hiding myself or hiding things that honestly I already knew that He knew. But it caused me to walk into a truth and remove my mask and become naked before God, which ultimately gave me the strength to make a life changing decision to relocate with my son. I had developed a relationship with God where I was hearing God's voice clearly outside of all the voices around me. I turned those off in my life, and God began to break off those relationships in my life because they were influencing me in a way that was not contrary to God's will for my life. So I was able to take the leap of faith and begin to walk in faith and following only God's voice. And today I am happily married, with 3.5 beautiful children. I'm currently pregnant with my fourth child. And because I've just decided to follow God and to follow God's voice and to embrace my difference, to embrace my uniqueness. God has blessed me and opened insurmountable doors for me, because I decided that following him was all that mattered. And I was okay with, and I am okay with now, maintaining my peace and doing whatever's necessary to stay free, because I know what it means to be bound by tradition, by religion, by mindsets, by others' thoughts of you. I know what it means to be bound by that. And God has enabled me to walk into a place of freedom, that has allowed me to minister to others that are experiencing being bound, or for lack of better terms, just being in a place where I'm free enough and I'm comfortable enough to be what I am. And what I am is fearfully and wonderfully made. And I agree with God concerning me, at this point in my life. So I pray that this helps someone, and that you understand that who you are is who God wants and who he called. God bless you.